Hello and welcome back to the Business Growth Accelerator. This is Isar, your host. This episode is with Noam Toister, who is the founder and CEO of Bookaway. It's a fascinating story about how to turn around a really bad situation into a huge success, how to convince investors, how to build a strategy to get companies to work with you. And it's packed with amazing business tips.
Brilliant.
How to think about it as an opportunity. I think it's kind of a state of mind because as a entrepreneur, I guess that I have two states of mind, right? Either you look at something and you say this is a huge problem, or you look at something and you say, hey, why isn't anyone solving that? And I guess this is how we look at things at some point. And I think that about 6 months through COVID, all the world was in lockdowns and nobody was getting out of the house, let alone the country. And it was kind of clear that for most travel startups, this is go big or go home, because a lot of companies and also competing companies basically decided to go hibernate. They sent employees home, and I'll talk to you when travel returns. For several reasons in Israel, it's not possible to do. You can't just say tell them go home and I'll come back in 6 months, because in 6 months they're going to have a different job in a different startup. So that was an option for us. And we knew there is an opportunity out there, and kind of realized that every competing company is more or less in the same situation.
First of all, that challenges represent opportunities, right? And entrepreneurs see it as such, right? Even like your beginning stories, like you had a challenge booking a train ticket or a bus ticket, and like, oh, that's an opportunity. So I think part of it is what you're saying is the mindset.
We reached out to different competitors, different players in the market, even pre-COVID. We wanted to talk about cooperations, see if there's anything we can do. Usually the response was quite sort of, cold, right? So I have no interest in cooperating. When COVID came, was suddenly all these conversations became much easier. It was like, okay, so let's talk about what's going on. Like maybe there is some common ground that we can reach and do sort of come out of this a bigger company. Because I think that what we offered a lot of companies that are now part of our group is the same thing that we did for ourselves. Is an opportunity to go big instead of just wait it out. And these are companies that are led by visionaries and entrepreneurs as well. And once they tied into the vision, which is something that all of us, by the way, in the group thought needs to happen at some point. Then they said, okay, maybe this is the point. And it's a lot about looking into what are the different incentives and aspirations of different players in the market, and try to see if you can answer a large part of those with what you're doing.
Open communication, right, is the ability to communicate your idea, to communicate the opportunity, to really have an open, candid conversation with somebody who, in many cases, is your competitor, and finding ways to cooperate while presenting the new opportunity to them as something that they can benefit from as well. Like you're saying, understanding the aspirations of others is a big part of it, right?
Yeah, so I think that the huge part of it is communications, really, and relationships. Because in the end, you're not sort of building a standalone product that either someone buys it or not. You're building a company, and the key here is creating significant relationships with people that are going to be your partners, if that works. And I think it's a long process. It took me 6 8 months to get this thing together, and it's a lot of conversations with people about how they see their future, how do they see their employees, their companies, what I have in mind about the future of their business, aligned with what they have in mind. But at some point it doesn't. In some cases it doesn't, right? We looked at a couple of opportunities that we said it's just not going to work. But when you do get to some common grounds and you realize that there is a huge opportunity, and there is, because when travel comes back, this company is going to be $1 billion company easily, right? Because it's going to be the leading ground transportation provider globally. And all these companies that were at a pretty bad corner before, are going to get out of it as basically winners.
How'd you pick the companies you want to partner with? Like, what were the things you were looking for?
So you know a competitor or sort of a company in the industry, you know at a high level, you know what's their traffic maybe, you know what they sell, you probably know them from the industry, right? From different suppliers, what they other suppliers say about them. But it's really interesting to get to know a company in depth. And and what we were looking for are basically two things. One is expanding our supply and demand base. So companies that have connections to supply to operators that we haven't reached yet was one thing, and expanding our demand base. There's companies that basically have a very strong demand. Either it comes from different affiliates or it comes from very strong sort of organic positioning in Google. So that was the second thing that we looked for. And the third thing, which is actually maybe the most important thing, is we looked for products that are complementary to what we are doing. And without going into the tech details, we bringing transportation operators online requires some sort of software that either they have or they don't have. And like parallel to the property management system you get in hotels. And we wanted to be able to provide that software to the companies that we work with. So that was one other thing that we looked for in the industry. We wanted to see what are the companies that actually have that like a compatible software that we can actually distribute to our very, very wide network.
I think what you're describing now is very interesting from kind of like the next phase perspective, right? Because now you have multiple companies that are a part of one group that you're trying to consolidate in many different aspects, including technology, right? You're saying, I want to have one technology that can serve everybody, which makes a lot of sense, but represents a whole new set of challenges that maybe none of the people in the group right now is equipped to deal with. So what are the next big steps, like big milestones that you see for this group?
The basic thing about M&As, and you know what, we have to be kind of honest about it. We started off clueless, right? So the fact that someone gave us money to buy out four, five, six companies is nothing short of crazy. Okay.
Yes,
And also, I guess we're smart guys, and we consulted with a lot of people. We took advisors. We talked to people that have done this many times, and we learned everything that we can. And but in the end, we still, without going into details, more than four M&As in 6 months, and you have to consolidate these companies, and that's pretty crazy task. So I think the biggest thing that we need to take care of is making sure that we don't break anything, because making sure that the companies that are added into our group, that is sort of the group that we're creating, come back to becoming a 1 + 1 + 1 being equal 3 and not 2. So like the biggest task is making sure that these companies come back to where they were pre-COVID. After that, and that has a lot of aspects. It has a very, very significant HR aspect, retaining a lot of employees that went through a very difficult time
sure.
professionally in their life as well, and retaining different managers that have a lot of opportunities in the market, perhaps, right? Because nobody has to work in the travel industry, right? There are other industries that weren't hit as bad, and getting that retained and working. And after that is sort of the next phase, is really looking into what synergies we can create. And that happens in, sometimes in parallel, sometimes it happens afterwards. But each company has its own strengths. So one company would be very good at creating organic traffic, and the other company would be very good at paid marketing. And once you take the paid marketing, the sort of knowledge to that company and the organic knowledge to that company, both of them are increasing their sales. Each company, doesn't have inventory globally. Once you put, give them access to selling services that they didn't have before, that increases sales. The last point is really how do you kind of consolidate different aspects of the business, right? So maybe you take the support and you consolidate it into one point, or if you're creating a new product in that would be that everybody in the group would want, then how do you do it? How do you develop it once and not several times, and that's a challenge. But I think the first and hardest challenge is actually making that whole kind of puzzle stick. I'm doing startup companies was is all I've done in my professional life, and I guess I've taken so many hits, so many punches in the face doing what I've done, that at some point I kind of realized that I'm first thing is it's okay to get it wrong, and the second thing is I'm gonna get it wrong several more times for sure. And as much as I try to do the smart thing or the correct thing, I you're gonna fuck up, and being aware of that as you make a plan is very important, because if you make a plan and you're sort of confident this is the right thing, something is wrong with you, right? So uh, you gotta make a plan and realize that the plan might change and it might be the wrong plan. Just be aware of what you're doing and measure it properly. And that's, I guess, one of the most important things is really being able to decide what is the end goal, what is the sort of the point that we're aiming to get to, and make sure that whatever path we chose is actually leading there.